The Redcat Vigilante is a giant 1/5 scale electric four-wheel drive monster truck. Sells for $946 at the time of this video, and it is the newest, I guess, entry into that large scale arena, along with obviously the Traxxas XMaxx. A lot of people consider that the best RC truck. You also have the Arma Outcast and Crane. I also have an Outcast and an XMaxx. And you've also got something like the Sand Reaper. So yeah, this is a limited number of offerings in the giant basher class, but the Vigilante is one of the cheapest at $860. So we're going to be talking about how it compares to those other trucks. So the way the review works is we go through 6 different categories, giving it a rating from 1 to 5 stars as compared to those other trucks. I have all of them except for the Sand, which I have driven, so very familiar with pretty much everything in its class. 5 stars would mean best in class, 3 stars would mean average, and 1 star would mean worst in class. So yeah, let's get into the review. First off is the electronics, and it does have basically Hobbywing electronics. So Redcat does use a lot of like standard off-the-shelf electronics. They do tag them as their Redcat parts, but you know, you've got basically the Max 5 from the Hobbywing line. You've got the 4985 1250 kV motor, so very nice components there. On the radio side, you essentially have like a FlySky radio, again branded as a Redcat, but pretty good radio overall. You have steering endpoint adjustment, which is nice. Throttle trim, steering trim, obviously channel reversing, foam wheel, slightly angled, so a little bit different. Trigger feels nice, and you do have channels 3 and 4, as well as a little LED to, you know, basically light up whatever you might be looking at. 4 AA's, 2.4 gigahertz in the grid antenna, so pretty nice radio overall. I think this is actually one of the best packages out there. I'm going to give it 5 stars in the electronics category. Servos, you know, not the greatest, but it hasn't broken on me. You know, some of the other servos out there are not the strongest, like the XMaxx. So servos adequate. I think the motor and EC are probably best in class. Radio probably best in class as well. So yeah, really nice package overall. You get a lot with the electronics here, and they've always done a really good job with Redcat stuff. In terms of the design, the Vigilante is kind of interesting. It has some characteristics shared with the XMaxx, kind of that plastic tub chassis, the bracing down the middle. You got the motor, which is centralized here in the back. You've got the 2 batteries on the sides, and then servo and receiver box on one side, the ESC on the other. Pretty well balanced. You know, I did change out the plugs to EC5s, but overall, really nice design. Does have large 24mm hexes throughout, so nice aluminum, you know, front and rear knuckles as well. Tires are pretty interesting. They do have basically these steel inserts into the wheels. The wheels themselves are plastic, but they do have the inserts to provide more durability. Adjustable sort of center brace here. Adjustable body mounts as well. Reasonably easy to work on, you know, compared to some of the other things like the XMaxx, which is pretty hard. The Crane Outcast are somewhat similar to the 6S step, but slightly different as well. I do like the design of this. They do have the limiting straps here on the shocks, so you don't overextend the shocks and hyperextend them and basically break rods or shock shafts or anything like that. The body itself is, you know, it's nothing particularly great about it. It is somewhat flimsy, but it does have a little bit of a roll cage, normal body clip, so nothing unusual there. But working on this thing, again, is pretty decent overall. The only things I don't like are probably the battery trays. So the stock battery trays really have no space, allow you to use larger batteries. It does get a little bit difficult to tuck here underneath. I'm actually running M2C Racing battery trays. I do recommend that. They have 3rd battery strap option so that you can basically adjust the distance. Also use larger batteries, and they got a little space here to raise the center tower here to allow you to stick larger batteries and get them more easily in and out there. So yeah, overall design I think is pretty good. Probably the one main thing I don't like, if you want to run a larger motor with larger pinions, again, it's somewhat limited here in the back. Stock 18 tooth pinion is almost the biggest you can get. You can go up to 19 tooth, maybe a 20 if you got a smaller 20 tooth, but really somewhat limited there. M2C does make a nice motor mount to allow you to run larger motors as well as larger pinion sizes, so that's pretty cool. Another option for you there. But overall, I think the design is quite good. I'm going to get 4 stars out of 5. Really not too many complaints. They do have adjustable turnbuckles. They do have nice aluminum parts throughout. Seems reasonably durable as well. So pretty good design overall. Share some characteristics with the XMaxx, but it is quite different as well. So yeah, I do like the design. Now, probably the one area that might require a little bit of tuning is the performance. It is a little undergeared out of the box and not much space to run a larger pinion gear. You can go up one tooth. Also, the diffs, again, were somewhat underfilled, so really the top speed on this thing is a little bit underwhelming. You know, most of the trucks in this category are not super speed monsters. Even the XMaxx is undergeared, but you can go a few teeth fairly easily. And this is not particularly fast, but the suspension works really well. It is set up very stiff for large jumps. You can't really backflip out of the box, but gear it up, throw in some thicker center diff fluid, you might be able to do that. I think the tires are excellent. These have a lot of grip. Sort of this Badlands style tire works really well in dirt. Suspension is set up really nice. Steers pretty good. I even took this out to sort of a large BMX park and was running laps with it, so you can do that as well. Drives well overall, just a little bit undergeared and needs a little bit of tuning. I think you got something really good. The shock suspension is set up quite stiff, so if you like doing serious bashing, I think they work pretty good out of the box. But performance-wise, I'm going to give it 4 stars. I think traction is good, steering is pretty good, suspension is pretty good. Just a little underwhelming in the speed below. You can fix that, and not really as much of a stunt truck, in my opinion. The XMaxx, you can do backflips with it if you just gear it up a little bit and launch it off a big enough ramp. But the Redcat Vigilante, not really set up for that kind of thing, so a little bit underwhelming in that part, but the rest of the performance is really good. Couple things durability wise I found with the Vigilante. I think overall it's reasonably durable. The body seems a little thin, so I'm not sure that's going to hold up long term if you're landing on the roof a lot, but this is a little bit more of a ground based vehicle. You're not going to be sending it quite as much as you might say an XMaxx, so you're not going to be landing as much on the roof, but that is certainly one area where it's a little bit thinner than the other vehicles out there. I did also have a drive axle pop out here in the front, so I'm not sure really what happened, but it popped out. The arms just kind of twist a little bit. I was able to take it apart, put it back in, so no breakages there. But the one area that I do feel like is a durability concern is the differential. So I did shred the rear differential basically on the first battery pack. Front, I'm sure, would eventually go as well. I do feel like you need to get either the Vidavon pieces or the machine steel ones from Redcat themselves. So they do make hardened ones. I wish they had came in the box, but unfortunately the stock gears, in my opinion, are fairly weak, and you will probably shred them, and this is pretty much commonly reported by a lot of other people as well. So that's one area I do feel like is pretty much a must-have, and that's about $100 depending on which variant you get. Besides that, yeah, it seems reasonably durable, no real issues. I do like the shock limiting shafts. I didn't break any arms, didn't bend any turnbuckles, didn't break any shocks. The bumpers, you know, not the most durable thing, but they've held up so far, and the body has held up so far. So overall, I think the durability is adequate. So I'm going to get an average durability rating. I think if they had fixed that, I would probably give it a 4-star rating. But because they do have that flaw that you do need to fix basically out of the box, I'm going to give a 3-star rating in the durability. It's reasonably durable overall, but I certainly cringe a little bit more when I crash this thing as compared to, say, an XMaxx, which is probably the durability king. Even the Outcast, unless you land it, you know, pretty badly, it's mostly going to survive. But this thing, you know, even just running it on flat ground, you're going to shred diffs and stuff like that. So I'm going to give an average rating in the durability category. Redcat's a little bit of a smaller brand compared to Arrma and Traxxas. Not really what I would consider a small, like, boutique brand, but it is definitely going to be a little bit harder to get parts than those other brands. So I'm going to give it a 3-star rating in support and maintenance. I think working on this thing is reasonably good. Certainly getting the center diff requires a few more things, pulling off the rear end, pulling off the bottom pieces and stuff like that. But overall, I think this truck is not too hard to work on. But getting parts, you know, your local hobby shop may or may not carry parts for this. This is not necessarily really like the most popular brand or most popular model within the Redcat Racing line. Redcat Racing, again, you know, some stores are going to carry, some are not. But I think, you know, their customer service is actually pretty good. I've had no issues working with them. They're pretty good about warranty, trying to, you know, help you, especially if you're here in the U.S. at least. I don't know about other countries, but Redcat Racing does treat their customers quite well. They had an issue with the original Valkyrie where the shocks were kind of manufactured wrong, and they kind of fixed that for everybody. So I do like their customer service, but it's just a little bit smaller brand, a little bit harder to get parts, especially compared to Traxxas and Arrma, which are massive brands and much easier to get stuff. Their warranty, I think, is good and probably better than Traxxas, but the Arrma warranty is also really good. So overall, yeah, I would give it an average rating. Support and maintenance. Maintenance is pretty good, but the rest of it, you know, kind of average. RC cars just keep going up and up in price. The XMaxx is now $1,100. I think when it originally came out, it was like $600 or $700. The Outcast and Crane EXB, the 8S line, again, $1,100, although I do think you get some premium products with the 7075 chassis and parts like that. So those are maybe a little bit better value than the XMaxx. The Redcat is hundreds of dollars cheaper at $946. I think what you get out of the box is quite nice. A few little design flaws, you know, maybe you want to get the battery trays from M2C, maybe you want to get the upgraded diffs. So once you spend a little bit of money there, you're closer, probably more like $1,000. So it's still a little bit cheaper, but maybe not quite the absolute value you get compared to the XMaxx and the Outcast and Crane 8S. So overall, in the value category, I'm going to give it a better than average rating. You know, it is a little bit cheaper. I think once you get those parts, you got something pretty good. I'm going to give a 4-star rating in value. Obviously, prices fluctuate over time. It was a little bit cheaper, but you know, obviously things have changed, and you know, inventory and costs and stuff like that will affect how much something is. So yeah, overall value wise, I think it's a good value, not an amazing value, but pretty decent overall. I'm going to give it 4 stars. Final thoughts on the Redcat Vigilante is that it's a great monster truck. Certainly more of a ground-based type thing, not so much for doing stunts. You will have to make modifications, maybe put in a bigger motor for certainly filling up the center diff with a little bit thicker fluid. And then I think you got something pretty good. There are some limitations in terms of batteries, sizes that you can run. Typically, I run something like this, a Redline 4S pack on both sides, and that will fit nicely. But a lot of people are going to run bigger batteries or different battery packs, and for that you would want to modify the battery trays. I also think it's undergeared, does need to go up 1 tooth on the pinion at a minimum, and then you've got the issue with the disc. So there are some changes I think you probably want to make out of the box. I think the general platform overall is pretty good. The arms, most of the parts are actually quite durable. Just the diffs is an issue and something you want to spend money on. I think the components they give you in the box are really nice. I do like the motor. ESC is probably the best ESC out there, and you've got a really nice radio as well. So everything you sort of equip it with is quite nice. There's some nice design touches that I think are good. The steel inserts on the wheels, the limiting shock extender, so that way you don't overextend the shocks. I think they did a really good job with that. So there are some areas they could improve, like the body, maybe a little bit different design. But overall, yeah, I do like the Vigilante. Is it the best monster truck out there? I think it's comparable to the XMaxx and the Outcast. They both have their pros and cons. The XMaxx is definitely going to be more durable, better part support, probably a little bit more of a stunt machine. I think the Outcast drives quite well. You get probably a little bit more value in the box. But this is a great offering from Redcat. I'm glad they have it out there, and sometimes it's on sale and you get a little bit better deal. I paid less than $870 because I bought it when it sort of originally came out. But this is a great deal. Nice monster truck. I do have a lot of fun with it, especially if you like tinkering, tuning with it. There are some option parts to get a little bit drive better. And then you might want to consider some upgrades in the power plant if you want to go a little bit faster. That's probably the one area I think people might find it a little bit underwhelming, because you can't do those crazy stunts. And the top speed on thing, I think, is a little bit lower than its competitors. But overall, yeah, I like the Vigilante a lot. I think it's a really great offering. I do think that probably made by the same manufacturer that does the MTA, the MT10, the Redcat Kaiju, things like that, because there are definitely some design similarities, like these upper arms and links and stuff like that. You can definitely tell it's probably made by the same company. But overall, great truck. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like stuff like this, definitely subscribe. I do like making kind of these review videos and tech videos and stuff like that, and that's the best way to support the channel. I will also have a link in the description below where you can pick one of these up. But anyways, I hope you liked it. Don't forget to hit the like, share, subscribe buttons. Look for more videos soon. Thanks for watching.